Single Dad's amazing choice. One night with a judge reveals an unexpected path to freedom. Jake wiped his brow, the grease of the day mixing with sweat as he finished another grueling shift at the garage. It was just past 10 o'clock, and the lingering scent of burnt rubber filled the air. He felt the weight of the world pressing down on him. With bills piling up and Lily depending on him more than ever since her mother passed, each day felt like a battle against fierce tides. Now a patron had crossed the line, berating him for his work, hurling insults that clung like a heavy fog, questioning his worth as both a father and a man. His fists curled, but the anger quickly gave way to despair. Defeated, about to throw in the towel for the night, he glanced at the community meeting flyer hastily taped to the wall. Could it be any worse? He whispered to no one. The urge to crawl into bed and hide from reality was almost too tempting. Yet something stirred within him, a feeble flicker of hope. Taking a deep breath, he decided to attend, needing a distraction more than ever. The community hall was packed. As Jake sat, he felt out of place, surrounded by faces discussing town bylaws and local issues. Then Judge Collins stepped forward, his reputation preceding him. Known for his integrity, he shared gripping tales of his journey, lifting himself from poverty to become a voice of reason in their town's justice system. The judge's raw vulnerability resonated with Jake, each word piercing through the haze of grief and hopelessness that veiled his heart. Purpose, the judge said, letting the word hang in the air. It's what drives us to rise, to face the harsh realities of life. Jake squirmed in his seat, that word echoing in his mind. Does he have purpose? He viewed the judge's resolute determination as a beacon illuminating a path he barely dared to consider. His chest tightened. Could he really aspire to enact change, to fight for justice? Before he could further explore that thought, anxiety tore through him like a bolt of lightning. What about Lily? The bills didn't stop piling up, and the smallest misstep could lead to collapse. He could hear her voice, filled with worry, cautioning him against risk. She seemed so much wiser, more attuned to the dangers lurking in their small town than he was. The weight of obligation to keep her safe felt suffocating. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. After the meeting ended, Jake exited into the night, the cool air filled with potential and threat alike. He couldn't shake the feeling that new developments were on the horizon. Whispers of corruption among familiar faces buzzed as he walked home, a gnawing sense of dread creeping in. Lily's fears began resurfacing in his mind, a stark reminder of their precarious existence, and he wanted to do right by her, not drag her into chaos. As they sat down to dinner, Lily's eyes darkened with anxiety as each forkful of food became a reminder of their unstable lives. "Dad, please watch out," she implored, tension thickening the air. "I can't lose you, too." Her voice pierced his heart, but ignited passion as well, a longing to fight back against the injustices they witnessed day to day. Jake felt the walls tightening, the weight of his responsibilities and the allure of a newfound path at odds. Staring at a faded photograph of his late wife, a rush of resolve sparked within him. He needed to choose, to reclaim not just personal dignity, but a future for both of them, one where they could thrive instead of simply surviving. But the path ahead was layered with dangers, the stakes rising higher than ever. Stepping outside, he inhaled deeply, clutching at the cool, revealing night air, uncertain of what tomorrow would bring, but anchored by one singular truth. He had to make the leap. even if it meant risking everything. As dawn broke, Jake awoke with a sense of urgency that pushed him out of bed. The sun's first rays canopied his small kitchen, illuminating the chaos of bills strewn across the table. It was time to confront those impending deadlines, to face the oppressive shadows that loomed over his family. Today, he couldn't afford to waver or procrastinate. After Lily left for school, Jake settled into a chair, fueled by a desperate determination. He started organizing the bills, separating them into urgent and can wait. Each flick of paper cut deeper into his resolve. Just as he finished, a notification pinged on his phone, a reminder of the community meeting the night before. The power of purpose shone in his mind like a lighthouse, guiding him towards activated change. Grabbing a pen and paper, he started jotting down ideas. Get involved in local governance. Speak to Judge Collins. Advocate for families facing oppression. The more he wrote, the more the pieces began to fit together. He realized this was more than a desire for justice. It was about ensuring a better life for Lily, a promise to his late wife that he would never back down. The garage welcomed him with the familiar smell of oil and the comforting sound of bustling mechanics. Yet today felt different. Today, he was determined to carve out time to further his ambitions. As he worked on a customer's car, a passing thought gnawed at him. How would his co-workers perceive this shift? Would they ridicule him for aiming so high? There, in that moment, Jake felt an awakening of hidden competence. He recalled an unshaken confidence from his past. He was a good problem solver, adept at managing stress, and despite grueling hours, he had always carved solutions out of chaos. Perhaps he could employ those skills towards something larger, something transformative. During his lunch break, he pulled up Judge Collins's number. His hands trembled slightly as he dialed, uncertain of what lay beyond this small act. "Judge Collins speaking," a steady voice answered. Jake's heart pounded. I'd like to meet, to discuss some things about the community." He barely recognized his own voice, but determination threaded through every word. After confirming a meeting in the judge's office that afternoon, Jake noticed a strange mix of fear and exhilaration rising within him. He stood up, exhaling slowly as he walked towards the service area. "What are you doing?" a voice interrupted from behind. It was Mike, his colleague, leaning against a nearby truck with raised eyebrows. "Nothing," Jake replied, too quickly, the air suddenly thick with an unspoken challenge. His instincts told him not to share his journey just yet, but Mike probed further. "Come on, you've had that look. What's going on?" A part of Jake relished the prospect of being supported, yet another part wrestled with the risk of judgment. Deciding to keep his intentions close to the vest, Jake simply said, "I'm trying to dig my way out, that's all." For a moment, Mike studied him closely, and Jake felt exposed, his struggles laid bare. But instead of turning away, Mike nodded slowly. "Whatever it is, man, just don't lose your grip." The genuine expression sparked something within Jake, a sense of validation. As the day wore on, he meticulously prepared for his meeting, running through various scenarios in his head, outlining goals and cultivating strategies. The idea of standing up for his community and, in turn, for his family, fueled him. As he arrived at the judge's office, nerves twisted his stomach into knots, but he pushed through, determined not to let the weight of his fears hinder his resolve. The walls seemed to close in. Had he overstepped? Could he really contribute to a cause so vast and complicated? He walked through the door, taking a deep breath and steeling himself. The moment of truth was dawning. Jake faced Judge Collins, not as a broken man seeking aid, but as an emerging advocate willing to challenge the status quo. "I want to help," Jake declared, his voice steady despite the quaking dread within. Inwardly, he braced himself for whatever the judge's response might bring. And in that tense stillness, Jake had never felt more certain about a decision in his life. But the real question lingered. Would he be ready to confront the challenges that awaited him? Jake's heart raced as he faced Judge Collins across the polished wooden desk. The office was an intricate balance of authority and warmth, books lining the shelves like guardians of the law. He could feel the weight of the judge's gaze, as if she were meticulously assessing this unexpected visitor. The idea that he was here, sitting in front of someone who had the power to effect change, invigorated the beating of his heart. "Mr. Smith, I appreciate your initiative," Judge Collins began, her voice steady yet encouraging. "What exactly do you wish to discuss today?" The words hung in the air, waiting for him to grasp them. In that moment, Jake felt an intense pressure to articulate his vision, a challenge to reshape his uncertainty into something tangible. He took a deep breath, remembering his purpose, the promise he had made to his wife, and the future he envisioned for Lily. "I want to help families like mine," he started, the passion rising in his voice. "I want to advocate for those facing the same struggles we are, whether it's financial hardships or legal issues. I believe that if we—" He hesitated, fighting the nagging fear that threatened to undermine his resolve. What did he truly know about advocacy? What if he was out of his depth? "If we work together, we can make a difference," he finished, though the certainty in his voice was overshadowed by self-doubt. Judge Collins leaned back slightly, her fingers steepled in thought. She studied him carefully, and for a painfully long minute, silence enveloped the room. Jake braced himself. This moment could either reinforce his commitment or sever it entirely. "Change doesn't come easily, Jake," she said finally, her tone unyielding. "It requires grit, understanding, and a solid foundation." "Which is exactly why I'm here," he interjected, his frustration spearing through the fear. "I want to learn. I'm not asking for a handout. I want to be part of the solution, to represent those who feel voiceless." Her brow furrowed slightly, and she nodded slowly. "That kind of mindset will serve you well, but understand that advocacy also means confronting your own biases, diving deep into the roots of these issues. Are you prepared for the weight of that responsibility?" Jake felt the gravity of her words. It was one thing to advocate, it was another to truly understand the complexities behind the struggles of others. "I can't promise to have all the answers," he admitted, leaning forward, his eyes earnest. "But I'm willing to fight for those who can't fight for themselves. I won't let my brown paper walls confine me anymore." The judge's expression softened. "Very well. Let's start with the basics. I can connect you with resources, people who've walked this path before you. But remember, not every interaction will be easy, and not every success will feel like progress." Jake nodded, fueled by newfound determination. Each word she spoke illuminated a pathway forward, unfurling like a map leading him beyond the doubts that had kept him chained for too long. He could already see the contours of his future unfolding. Yet, as they discussed the next steps, a gnawing thought lingered in the back of his mind. Could he balance this new venture with the demands at home? What if Lily needed him more than this newfound ambition? As they wrapped up the meeting, the judge handed him her card, the ink still fresh, a tangible link to a network of advocates. "Start small, Jake. There's power in grassroots efforts. Work with your neighbors and build understanding before you take on larger projects." Leaving the judge's office, Jake's mind buzzed with possibilities. Yet, with each step he took, questions echoed louder. Could he truly navigate this delicate balance of personal sacrifice and pursuit of a cause? Was he ready to confront the internal challenges that came with his newfound role? His thoughts raced as he headed for home, but one realization crystallized. He was stepping into a world where his actions would hold weight, his voice would matter, and every choice could ripple outwards. The horizon looked brighter, but it appeared lined with shadows yet to uncover. Each decision loomed ahead, echoing with implications he had yet to fathom. The time had come to face both his ambitions and the internal conflict weighing heavily on his heart. What awaited him next? Uncertainty twisted into exhilaration as he contemplated the choices he would need to make. Walking into the modest apartment he shared with Lily, Jake was met with the familiar scent of macaroni and cheese wafting from the kitchen. The soft hum of the television accompanied the rhythmic tapping of his daughter's fingers on the tablet. A sense of comfort permeated the space, yet it felt somehow stifling, pressing against his newfound aspirations. "Daddy!" Lily called, her face lighting up like a beacon as he entered the room. The sight of her joyful smile reminded him of the stakes. His drive to become an advocate wasn't just for himself. It was for her, to ensure her future didn't mirror the struggles they had faced. "Hey, kiddo," Jake replied, kneeling to pull her into a hug. The warmth of her small frame was grounding, yet the weight of his ambitions rested heavily on his shoulders. There were decisions to make, commitments to juggle, and paths yet unexplored. "Can we do arts and crafts after dinner?" Lily asked, her wide eyes sparkling with hope. As she shared her excitement, Jake couldn't help but think how simple moments like these clashed with the complexities of his new venture. "Of course, I've been meaning to help you with your project," he said, masking the inner turmoil with confidence. The familiar heartache of balancing responsibilities loomed large, raising doubts about how he would navigate this new journey. After dinner, as Lily focused on her colorful paper and markers, Jake took a seat at the worn-out dining table, pulling out Judge Collins' card from the pocket of his jeans. He ran his thumb across the surface as though searching for answers hidden in the ink. Each time he replayed her words in his mind, they sparked conflicting feelings. Excitement interwoven with apprehension, clarity muddied by uncertainty. What exactly would he say to the first families he reached out to? How could he stand as a pillar of strength when he still felt so fragile within? The notion of reaching out to others haunted him, bringing forth a flood of insecurities. What if he failed to connect? What if he misrepresented their struggles? In that moment, a thought pierced through the fog. He'd have to start from his own story, his authentic experience. Yet that very experience felt both empowering and vulnerable. By sharing his truth, he could perhaps build bridges instead of barriers. His heart raced as he set about drafting a plan to connect with his community. He would organize small meetings, perhaps in the park where families gathered. It dawned on him that familiar settings could foster open conversations. But each strategic thought was quickly followed by the haunting specter of self-doubt. Would people even show up? As he contemplated these possibilities, Lily's laughter erupted, pulling him back to the present. She held up a messy collage of colors, declaring it the best art ever. Her enthusiasm sparked something in him, reigniting the conviction to act. If his daughter could embrace her creativity without inhibitions, so could he. Jake grabbed a notebook and began to jot down ideas. Addressing the very real need for empathy and understanding in their community resonated deep within him. He needed to channel this energy into something tangible, something he could initiate without waiting for permission. He felt the adrenaline course through him as he wrote. A community forum, an open discussion about hardships. He could facilitate it. Perhaps even invite experts to educate families on their rights. Drawing from his vulnerability would inform his approach and make it relatable. Then, interrupted by silence, he stopped abruptly. A sobering reality surfaced. What if the very people he wanted to help responded with rejection? What if they felt his professional aspirations were merely condescending gestures? Doubt creeped in again, whispering reminders of past failures. As he processed these fears, he confronted a compelling truth. This was a risk he had to take. If he wanted to advocate effectively, it required stepping out of his comfort zone and embracing the unknown. Though riddled with potential pitfalls, it was a step toward transformation and growth. Jake glanced over at Lily, who was now lost in her own world. She looked so free and unencumbered, and he made a silent vow. He would confront his fears not just for himself, but for her. This moment marked the start of a profound journey, a blend of self-discovery and commitment to others. But even as these thoughts settled, a new concern blossomed. Could he truly keep his daughter safe and supported while immersing himself in advocacy? As he wrestled with that question, he realized that the true challenge lay ahead, and clarity was still a distant destination. Determined, yet anxious, Jake felt the time had come to act. As he set aside distractions and sought answers in the simple moments, another thought danced in his mind. How deep did the rabbit hole of advocacy go? What awaited him on the other side? Would he be prepared for the depth of those revelations? The next morning greeted Jake with soft rays of sunlight trickling through the blinds. He blinked away the remnants of sleep, already feeling the tensions of the day ahead settle on him like an anchor. The air was charged with potential and dread in equal measure, and the looming idea of his first outreach meeting occupied every crevice of his mind. As he prepared breakfast, he mentally rehearsed his introduction. Would his voice crack? Would he stutter over his words? These fears, surging like waves, persisted even as the comforting clinks of plates filled the kitchen. He flipped pancakes with precision, channeling his urgency into the rhythm of cooking. In this, he found a strange sense of control, an illusion of mastery over the chaos. "Can I help, Daddy?" Lily's voice broke his concentration. She tugged on the hem of his shirt, her eyes wide with innocent anticipation. "Of course, kiddo. You can set the table." In that moment, he found reaffirmation in their shared routine. The mundane acts of parenting grounded him, providing a backbone against his swirling thoughts. As they worked together, he realized that these interactions, not the dread of public speaking, were the fabric of his resolve. After breakfast, he set out to draft an invitation for the families he hoped to connect with. He wanted it to convey sincerity, an invitation to share rather than a plea for help. Each word pulsed with the importance of his mission, but the curtain of doubt threatened to obscure the clarity he craved. He settled at the tiny table, eyes darting from his notebook to Lily, who was now engrossed in her drawing. Her unabashed creativity rekindled something within him, spurring a burst of clarity. What if he framed the invitation not merely as a meeting, but as a community gathering where everyone could share their experiences? It could create an atmosphere of strength, one where voices intertwined instead of standing alone. Fueled by this insight, he crafted his message carefully, inviting families to a casual meetup in the local park. "Come share your stories. Let's understand each other better." He savored the simplicity and authenticity of it, a stark contrast to the complicated anxieties brewing inside him. But just as confidence began to swell, a jagged slice of reality interrupted his thoughts. What if the community dismissed him? What if the families he meant to rally were reluctant to engage? The specter of isolation slithered closer, and he felt a wave of urgency mixed with impotence. Fighting back against despair, Jake stepped outside to take in some fresh air. The street seemed so alive, bathed in warmth. Children played, laughter ringing out. Yet this vibrancy felt like a world away from the shadows of doubt lurking within him. His gaze shifted to the park, where parents often congregated, and he envisioned them, sitting with their concerns locked tightly in their hearts. He remembered his own childhood, his faltering steps into new environments, how terrifying it had been. If he could only transform that fear into understanding. That thought crystallized a new determination within him. Returning to his apartment, Jake caught sight of Lily. "What do you think, kiddo? Should we invite people to talk about their feelings?" he asked, curious about her unfiltered perspective. "Yeah, people like talking," she exclaimed, her face lighting up with enthusiasm. Her straightforwardness reminded him of the essential truth he almost overlooked. People did want to connect. Fear often stood in the way. With renewed energy, he printed copies of his message, knowing that each handoff was a leap toward building his courage. The tremors of doubt still danced along the edges, yet he discovered his resolve was no longer solely about pursuit. It was about creating connections, fostering an atmosphere ripe for sharing, healing, and community growth. As he set off to distribute the invitations, a deeper realization washed over him. His journey as an advocate would not only build bridges between people, but would also forge one between his hopes and fears. And yet, the haunting question remained. Could he navigate this path while ensuring Lily felt secure in his absence? The moment he stepped into the unknown, where would it lead him? How much of himself, his identity, and his past would he need to unravel for the sake of this deeper calling? Determined to find out, he clenched the invitations tightly in hand, and with each step toward the park, he felt the line between fear and courage begin to blur. What unforeseen challenges awaited him there? Jake felt the weight of the invitations as they pressed against his palm. But it was the weight of his anxiety that truly consumed him. With each step toward the park, he could feel his heart beat faster, echoing the uncertainty of what lay ahead. He needed this to work, not just for the families he hoped would come, but for himself. He craved validation that he wasn't just another man fumbling his way through life. Arriving at the park, the sound of laughter and playful shouts filled the air. Vibrant colors of springtime blossomed around him. Yet, in stark contrast, a chill wrapped around his heart. It felt like the noise of joy was mocking his fears. Jake glanced down the pathway, taking in the mix of parents and children, blissfully unaware of the turmoil churning within him. At first, he moved cautiously, scanning for familiar faces, seeking out those who might be willing to listen. The invitations felt like a lifeline, yet clutching them so tightly threatened to choke the very essence of his intention. Taking a deep breath, he forced himself to loosen his grip. Could he allow himself to be vulnerable? To say aloud what he truly wanted? Connection, understanding, and a community that would support not only him but Lily as well? In that moment, he spotted a mother he recognized from the playground. Sarah always exuded a warm, approachable presence. Tapping into her kindness could help break the ice. Taking a bold yet shaky step, he approached her. "Hey, Sarah, do you have a minute?" The words escaped before he could double-check his courage. She turned, a smile lighting up her face. "Jake, sure, what's up?" He felt a sudden surge of clarity. "I'm organizing a small gathering this weekend, just a chance for parents to share ideas and concerns, kind of like a meetup for those of us in the same boat." His voice was steadier than he expected. Sarah's gaze softened, her interest piqued. "That sounds great. I know a lot of parents are looking for space to talk. You're so brave to put this together." His heart swelled at her affirmation, igniting a flicker of confidence. Still, Jake felt the ghost of doubt brush against him. "I hope so, but what if no one comes? What if it's just me standing there?" The admission slipped out before he could catch it, raw and unguarded. "People want to connect," she said. "Just keep reaching out." Through her reassurance, he recognized the power of individuality. He could share his own fears while facilitating a safe space for others. They exchanged details about the gathering, and as they spoke, he felt the air around him shift. Each mention of the word meeting felt lighter, like gravity had given way to experience. As he wandered further into the park, distributing more invitations, each interaction transformed. No longer simply handouts, but genuine exchanges. He noticed parents lingering at the edges of their comfort zones, each hiding a story longing to be told. Why not take the chance to bridge those distances? Yet, as he met new faces, Jake also found himself battling unexpected tension. Moments of stuttered speech, the weight of palpable silence as he tried to initiate conversation. Once friendly eyes shifted away, the sharpening pang of rejection stung deeper than he anticipated. Would he ever shake off these shadows? In moments of doubt, he tried to remember Lily's vibrant enthusiasm. People like talking. The clarity from her innocence became his rallying cry. He wasn't just seeking connection for himself, but aiming to carve a path for others like him. With each step, Jake began to see reflection in others. Their fears were just as real, just as daunting. He realized he was crafting something bigger than himself amid the casual exchanges, the roots of a community that could emerge from shared vulnerability. But even as the afternoon sun dipped lower in the sky, shadows of doubt poked at the edges of his newfound courage. What if he failed to create a space where others felt safe to share? What if he couldn't bear the estrangement of those who drifted back into solitude? As he wrapped up for the day, he pondered the emotional landscape he'd navigated. Each invitation handed out was a promise made, a step further into the unknown. Little did he know that an unexpected confrontation awaited him in the days to come, one that threatened not just this gathering, but his very foundation. All he could do was acknowledge the fear and find the strength within it to keep moving forward. Could he rise to meet the challenge lurking just beyond the horizon? And would that journey finally show him the freedom he so desperately sought? As the week unfolded, Jake's nerves transformed into a mix of anticipation and dread. Each passing day carried him closer to the weekend, when his gathering would either solidify his resolve or shatter it entirely. He found himself replaying Sarah's words in his mind. People want to connect. But could he be the catalyst for such connections? Late at night, as he prepared invitations and mentally practiced his opening remarks, doubt whispered its familiar tune. What if no one came? Each flicker of anxiety felt like an anchor pulling him down. The echoes of his earlier confidence faded, leaving him wrestling with the persistent question of his worth. Was he really equipped to guide this meeting, or was he merely chasing an illusion of purpose? The night before the gathering, he lay in bed, Lily's soft breathing providing a soothing backdrop. Thoughts of failure invaded, but alongside those shadows emerged the image of his daughter's smiles. If he succeeded, it could inspire a similar bravery in her. This duality of motivation became a guiding light in his struggle. The morning broke under a veil of gray clouds, mirroring Jake's tumultuous emotions. Each task, from preparing chairs to arranging snacks, felt monumental. On one hand, he felt exhilarated at the prospect of creating a safe space. On the other, he was weighed down by the specter of solitude. When the clock ticked closer to the designated hour, doubt resurfaced with a vengeance. He paced the living room, wrestling with the uncertainty thrumming in his chest. He picked up the phone, hovering over Sarah's number. She had been the first beacon of encouragement, and perhaps talking with her would bolster his resolve. "Sarah?" His voice trembled slightly as he spoke. "Jake, I was just thinking about you. How are you feeling?" "Honestly, a bit scared. I don't know if anyone will show up." "People appreciate kindness, and you're offering them something rare, a chance to share, to connect. Just be yourself." Her words sparked a flicker of reassurance, reminding him that vulnerability bore the seeds of connection. They spoke a little longer, a brief exchange that transformed from fear to determination. He hung up, inhaling deeply, invigorated by the simple act of sharing his worries. As the crowd began to gather, Jake waited, pulse racing. His heart sank as families trickled in, wandering instead of forming a tight group. They stood apart, exchanging polite smiles, but hesitant to engage. The timid atmosphere mirrored his own turmoil, igniting a fire of urgency within him. "Hey everyone, I'm glad you could make it," he called out, trying to summon an energy he didn't entirely feel. "I want this to be a space for us to talk about our experiences as parents, just an opportunity to share and support each other." A few mothers looked at him warmly, but the silence that hung in the air felt heavy. He exhaled and decided not to wait. If he was going to lead this gathering, he had to take the leap. "The truth is, I'm afraid. I'm afraid of failing and of standing alone in this space. But I know I'm not the only one who feels this way. What are your fears? What brings you here?" The room shifted, eyes sharpening, hesitations shifting. One mother spoke up hesitantly, sharing her struggles with isolation since her child had started kindergarten. Others chimed in, sharing similar feelings of uncertainty and isolation. With each shared sentiment, Jake felt his confidence swell. In that moment, something remarkable happened. The barriers began to dissolve before his eyes. Absorbing their stories, he began to realize the significance of vulnerability. In opening up, he was inviting them to do the same, to create a space where fear could transform into understanding. But just as the atmosphere began to thrum with connection, the door swung open again, and the chill of confrontation barreled in. A familiar figure appeared, shifting his heart back into uncertainty, one he didn't expect. "If you're looking to make friends, you may want to rethink your approach," said a voice that sliced through his newfound courage like a cold wind. Jake's gaze shot to the doorway. The unexpected presence brought a jolt of tension that threatened to unravel the very fabric he had begun to weave. How would he confront this disruption? And would he find clarity amidst the chaos shadowing the meeting he so painstakingly prepared for? Jake's heart raced, his breathing becoming shallow as he confronted the figure in the doorway. Marcus, a fellow parent known for his brusque demeanor, stood there with his arms crossed, eyes piercing through the otherwise warm atmosphere. The challenge hung in the air, a taut string ready to snap. He felt his pulse surge again, not from excitement but panic. Was he prepared for a confrontation? Doubts invaded his thoughts like bugs to light, urging him to question every decision he'd made leading to this moment.
"Marcus, he started, unsure of how to address the storm brewing before him. The room had been tightening, their burgeoning connection interrupted by Marcus's skepticism. A few parents shifted uncomfortably, glancing at each other, unsure whether to retreat or to stand firm alongside Jake. "Is this really how you want to make friends?" Marcus continued, his tone sharp but cloaked in an unsettling pseudo-sympathy. "Hiding behind fears and insecurities? You think they're going to come together because you've made yourself vulnerable? Honestly, you're just peddling excuses." The words cut deep. Jake could feel the hot flush of anger, but also the sting of recognition. He had laid bare his vulnerabilities, hoping to create a connection, while Marcus remained safely encased within his armor of sarcasm. Uncertainty flickered, and Jake wondered if he could hold fast to the fragile bond he'd begun to forge. "Marcus, I'm not here to make friends in some superficial way," Jake finally managed, voice steadier than he felt. "Being a parent is a struggle. We all have fears, isolation, and concerns. That's why we're here, to understand and support one another, not to criticize." He could sense the tension shift. Some heads nodded, small gestures of solidarity creeping into the room. There was power in his words. Something stirred deep within Jake. He recognized his purpose. This gathering wasn't solely about connection, it was about resilience. His willingness to share not only made space for others, but reinforced his footing as leader. Marcus's sneer faltered for a fraction of a second, and in that moment Jake perceived a glimmer of uncertainty in his opponent. "Resilience?" Marcus questioned, eyeing the gathered parents. "What does that even mean when deep down we're just fumbling around in the dark?" But Jake refused to back down. He felt the warmth spreading within him, fueled by the embers of communal struggle he'd so vividly witnessed just moments ago. It means showing up despite our fears. It means taking those small steps, individually and collectively. He scanned the faces around him, and as he spoke, realization swept through him. Every word tensed his muscles like a coil ready to unleash strength. Each of us has the power to find that light in the darkness. That's all I'm asking us to do tonight. Suddenly, a voice broke through the unease. It was another father, a quiet man who had sat to the side listening. "Jake's right. We've all felt lost. I want to be here and know that I'm not alone. That's what we all want, isn't it?" A mix of murmurs and nodding heads filled the air, the conversation shifting momentum again. Jake felt the swell of encouragement. He had ignited the flicker within others. Marcus glanced at the group, the cold facade now wavering. So, what? You're all just going to sit here and wallow together? Jake stepped forward, soul ignited with a newfound conviction. No, we're not here to wallow.
We're here to embrace the uncertainty and build something from it. And that includes giving ourselves a chance to grow. As the parents began to share stories, passions, and laughter, a feeling he hadn't anticipated washed over Jake, a simultaneous rush of pride and purpose. He realized his initial fear was a distant thought, swept away by a tide of connection only possible through honesty. But Marcus remained unmoved, shifting from foot to foot, stubbornly unwilling to fully engage with the intention of the gathering. "I think you're making a mistake," he retorted, but doubt crept into his tone now, mingling with defensiveness. Jake had felt the foundation he was building shaking under the weight of confrontation, yet a new idea began to form. If he could help even one person confront their fears, perhaps he could challenge Marcus as well. As the night unfolded, an idea flickered to life in his mind. A challenge not just for Marcus, but for himself as well. What if the objective of this gathering expanded beyond mere camaraderie? What if it sparked real change, both personally and collectively? The moment provided was charged with potential. He could feel the urgency swelling within him to uncover hidden depths. How far could he take this newfound role as a leader? He wanted to lean in and test it further, confront assumptions relentlessly, both his and others. The evening was just beginning, but Jake felt the adrenaline bubbling, both exhilarating and frightening. Would he harness that energy to explore the deeper layers of connection he sought? And as Marcus's skeptical eyes bore into him, Jake pondered the question that lingered both in the air and deep in his own mind. What truths lie ahead as the gathering unfolded, and were they ready to face the undeniable impact this exploration would have on all their lives? Jake felt the energy in the room shift as stories began to flow freely. Each parent took turns sharing their struggles, the raw honesty shedding the layers of pretense they often wore. With every revelation, Jake found himself stepping further from the shadows of his own uncertainty. It was transformative, a witnessing of resilience unfolding in real time. A mother spoke of sleepless nights spent pacing the floor with a crying baby, her voice trembling as she admitted her fears about never being enough. Jake caught the glances shared among the attendees, silent affirmations of shared experiences. He saw the flicker of recognition in her eyes as another parent chimed in, recounting how a simple moment of clarity helped him acknowledge his own flaws and insecurities. In this collective atmosphere, Jake rediscovered his voice. "We're not broken because we admit our struggles," he stated, looking around. The weight of Marcus's skepticism hung heavily in the air, but Jake wanted to defy it with every fiber of his being. We grow stronger by confronting our vulnerabilities. That's where true power lies. Although Marcus stood at the periphery, arms crossed defiantly, Jake sensed a chink in his armor. The vast divide between them seemed less pronounced amidst the pool of shared vulnerability, but the challenge he presented still loomed large. How could he make Marcus see what was at stake? The potential for real growth beyond cynicism felt like a beacon drawing him forward. As the circle of trust widened, Jake began to feel the stir of leadership within him, a role he had long shied away from, doubting he had the capability. But here, now, amidst communal pain transformed into strength, he rediscovered aspects of himself he thought long abandoned. His feedback became more assertive, driven by the emotional weight of each story told. Then a palpable silence enveloped them. Jake realized they were awaiting his next words, his voice the anchor they had begun to lean on. Marcus's doubts still loomed, but Jake's determination intensified, bridging the gap between vulnerability and strength. "What we have here is an opportunity," he said, steeling his resolve. "An opportunity not just to share, but to transform, to embrace our fears and conquer them together." In that moment of connection, Jake made a mental note. The urgency he felt to take this further didn't stem only from wanting to change Marcus's perspective, but also from the desire to excavate something deeply powerful within himself. The idea of transformation swirled, full of promise and challenge. Marcus broke the silence, skepticism wrapping around his words. "And you believe that a little storytelling will change our lives?" There was a trace of challenge in his tone, but Jake saw the spark of curiosity flicker behind Marcus's bravado. "What if we approach this differently?" Jake began, his mind piecing together a plan on the fly, each word focused and deliberate. "A weekly challenge where we confront something we hide from." He scanned the room, and various faces lit with intrigue. "A fear, an insecurity, something that haunts us. We could even hold each other accountable to those challenges each week." A murmur of excitement spread across the group, but Jake also noticed Marcus's questioning gaze, the conflict within him still simmering. Jake knew that this idea would not only amplify personal growth, but could also draw Marcus in, making him confront his own biases in a community of supportive voices. As Jake outlined the potential for shared journeys toward personal challenges, he felt his pulse quicken. This was more than just a meeting. It was the initiation of a movement within himself and the others, a promise they could face unsteady waters together. Yet as cheers of approval filled the room, he couldn't shake the gravity of Marcus's steadfast resistance. The confrontation looming ahead didn't just threaten their moment of connection, it could derail this newfound momentum. Jake's heart hammered within him, uncertainty mingling with exhilaration. What lay beneath Marcus's hardened exterior? What hidden histories could he unravel? As he locked eyes with Marcus, determination ignited within him. He would take this opportunity and push it further. The challenge of facing not just inner fears, but also external conflicts loomed large, poised for the next steps. With that thought hanging in the air, Jake threw out a challenge to himself as much as to the group. "Will we dare to evolve together?" he pressed, the tension making the question resonate deeply. Here, in this moment of potential, he felt the stirrings of something altogether unexpected. A resolve to confront not only the fears of others, but his own, an internal battle he knew was coming. What would this journey demand of him? How would it affect the bond that had begun to form? Would the courage he unearthed this night translate into the challenges that loomed ahead, not just for himself, but for everyone gathered? Jake sensed an answer was on the horizon, and it beckoned him forward into the unknown. As ambiance buzzed with newfound energy, he couldn't shake the feeling that the true test still awaited them beyond this gathering. He had opened a door, but what lay behind it would require every ounce of bravery he had discovered, and more. Jake stood at the threshold of transformation, a figure who had once felt burdened by shadows, but now basked in the illuminating glow of community. As weeks passed after that pivotal gathering, he witnessed the evolution of both himself and the families who had joined him. The initiative he had ignited, that weekly challenge to confront their vulnerabilities, rapidly gained traction, an unexpected movement aimed at healing and empowerment. Each meeting became a tapestry of shared stories, woven together by empathy and perseverance. He watched parents unveil not just their fears, but the raw strength that lay dormant underneath. Each one stepped forward with hesitant courage, revealing truths that once alienated them and strengthening the bonds they forged as a collective. In this environment, Jake recognized the remarkable shift within himself. Embracing vulnerability no longer felt like an act of weakness. Instead, it resulted in unbridled courage. When he shared his own experiences, His struggles with grief, the fears of inadequacy that had once choked him, he found that they resonated deeply with others, echoing in their own hearts. There was palpable support and, more importantly, realization that they were not alone in their struggles. Jake felt pride surging within him every time he witnessed someone conquer their hesitation. Clara, a mother who had initially sat in silence on the periphery, revealed her battle with anxiety every time her children left for school. The group rallied around her, sharing strategies and offering kindness. With each meeting, Clara became bolder, and eventually she facilitated a session herself, her voice strong, no longer the timid whisper it once was. The real achievement, however, came when he witnessed the tangible impact they made in the community. Ideas flourished beyond the confines of their gathering. Parents collaborated on a neighborhood support network, distributing resources, organizing childcare swaps, and advocating for policies that would protect their families. Jake saw the collective of individuals he had once felt reluctant to lead transform into an empowered force for change, a heartening unity driven by mutual respect and shared struggles. But it wasn't solely about them. Jake navigated his own path of personal growth through it all. He felt recognition in his workplace. His supervisor, impressed by his newfound confidence and leadership skills, promoted him to a supervisor position in the garage. The timing felt serendipitous, affirming that his drive to advocate for others had reignited his passion in other aspects of life. On a rainy afternoon, Jake stood at the park where it had all started, reflecting on the journey he had embarked upon. Witnessing the vibrancy of the community he helped foster filled him with gratitude. That flicker of hope he felt on that dark night had blossomed into a flame, illuminating not just his life, but the lives of countless others. As the families gathered nearby for a picnic, laughter mingled with the sound of raindrops on leaves, a testament to resilience and relationships forged through shared vulnerability. Lily, flourishing in her own creativity, now painted murals for children's events, a reflection of the joy she gleaned from her father's interactions within the community. Jake felt a profound sense of fulfillment wash over him. He didn't just step into the role of an advocate, he became a beacon of hope, illuminating the possibility of transformation in not just his life, but in the lives of all those around him. He realized that he had conquered not merely fear, but the very essence of who he was, stepping into a solid confidence he had never truly believed he could achieve. With contentment filling his heart, he looked at Lily and the connections forming around them. The journey had tested him, navigating personal sacrifices, facing confrontation, and embracing vulnerability. Yet here he stood, proud of the differences made, proud of the growth attained. In that moment, Jake knew he had embraced the journey that lay ahead, and it was a journey filled with hope, community, and the promise of lasting change. He had chosen to leap, not just for himself, but for every single parent who would ever struggle in silence. And through that choice, he had proven to himself that transformation began from within and resonated outwards. As the sun finally broke through the clouds, its rays cloaked the park in golden light. A fitting end to a chapter rich with growth, but the beginning was just on the horizon. You need to subscribe now to witness more incredible stories like this. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment with your reactions and theories about Jake's journey. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformative conclusion.